Honorable Ministers, Mr. Secretary General, Your Reverence, Mr. Assistant High Commissioner, Your Graces, distinguished participants. The convening of this important conference couldn't have been more timely as human mobility and worldwide displacement has hit an all-time high since World War II. Refugees fleeing war and persecution come to Europe's doorstep in their thousands daily. That doorstep is too often crossed at a very high price. My country, being throughout its history in the crossroads of migration routes, will continue to do its utmost to save people fleeing from war, terror, poverty and despair, while they struggle in their flimsy boats in the sea. Greeks cannot ignore the simple fact that at sea, no civilized human being can leave people drown in the cold waters of the Aegean. In 2015, the Hellenic Coast Guard has rescued 103,000 refugees and migrants at sea during search and rescue operations with the assistance of vessels from the EU member states participating in Operation Poseidon. In this way, Greece has struggled to remain faithful to the fulfillment of the key humanitarian priority of saving lives while facing multiple economic and social challenges. These people in need are received in a humane way in our frontline islands, with the generous mobilization also of the local population and the civil society in general. The smaller islands have been particularly affected, with refugees and migrants arrivals outnumbering the local population. It should be reminded that almost 900,000 people crossed the Aegean Sea in 2015. Allow me to profit from Dr. de Maiziere's presence here today to express my government's appreciation for the fact that Germany has taken in the highest number of refugees in 2015, thus upholding the same humanitarian ideals that are deeply rooted not only in the European civilization, but also in many religions and cultures all over the world. We equally recognize the generosity of countries such as Sweden for receiving the highest proportion of refugees per capita in the European Union. At the same time, we must recognize that the presence of a large refugee population may pose considerable economic and social strains on even the most developed countries. Obviously, maintaining the thin balance between security and respect for human rights of refugees and migrants is a constant litmus test for our administrations in Europe. That is why Greece has proposed to the EU that the fingerprints of those arriving in Europe be harmonized with the databases of international criminal tracking systems such as Europol and Interpol, so as to promptly identify suspects or wanted criminal offenders at the time of registration. This will crucially contribute to the better control of our external borders and will strengthen further the EU's defense of the Schengen acquis, which is one of the greatest achievements of the EU, and it is irreversible, as President Juncker himself recently highlighted. Since one of the main purposes of this conference is to discuss concrete coordinated responses to the refugee migration situations, let me point out that Greece supports the new steps for the creation of a European Border Coast Guard, while at the same time stressing the need for respect of the national sovereignty of the member states, and thus for careful planning of the new corps. It goes without saying that in this effort, the specificities of sea borders should be taken into account. Meanwhile, the refugee crisis has revealed the limits and shortcomings of the Dublin regulation in its present form. Frontline member states of the EU have been stressing this all along. The Dublin regulations should be thoroughly reviewed and entirely overhauled in order to establish a genuine burden-sharing system that would allocate asylum seekers on the basis of objective criteria. As far as our commitments to our European partners are concerned, the hotspot on the island of Lesbos is almost fully operational and consists of a first reception and registration center and separate refugee reception center. In the Lesbos center can house 3,500 to 4,000 individuals and register them daily. Especially unaccompanied minors, new facilities are being developed at the frontline islands and in the cities, of course within the limited capacities of a country undergoing an unprecedented economic crisis and distress. All the same, a new parliamentary bill is being swiftly prepared regarding the guardianship system. Furthermore, we firmly believe in further promoting resettlement from third countries as a durable solution which can contribute to preventing the loss of lives and deal a decisive blow to criminal trafficking and smuggling networks. We believe that once the people in need have boarded the traffickers' flimsy boats in order to cross the Aegean Sea, it is already too late. We must certainly do more in order to prevent unnecessary loss of life of people, among them thousands of children who have already been traumatized enough by war and chaos in their countries of origin. That is why cooperation with and assistance to countries of origin and transit is of paramount importance. On returns, we need to strengthen Frontex's role in order to have an effective return policy up and running as soon as possible. Readmission agreements with third countries should be fully implemented and new arrangements should be concluded. In all the above endeavors, we cannot omit to express Greece's continuous gratitude to important partners such as UNHCR and IOM for their work, as well as to the thousands of selfless volunteers and civil society members that daily go out of their way in order to help the people in need. But one cannot talk substantially about the relationship with countries of origin and transit without scratching underneath the strictly operational surface. Greece is fully subscribing to the wise words of the outgoing High Commissioner of UNHCR, Antonio Guterres, when he pointed out that we must stop dealing just with consequences of displacement and seriously start tackling its root causes. And in this respect, the task of religious and cultural leaders is formidable. I am very happy to be in the proper forum to say that in the testing times we are living in, the religious and cultural leaders play a crucial and responsible role in setting the moral high ground, calling for unity, tolerance, and solidarity among societies. This becomes even more urgent as our societies are becoming increasingly multi-religious and multicultural. In this regard, the valuable work of the Archdiocese of Athens and all Greece in providing aid for the migrants and refugees, as they have done creatively all these years for vulnerable and deprived social groups, should be noted. But more generally, there are many examples throughout history when enlightened religious and cultural leaders have played a catalytic role in promoting interreligious tolerance, understanding, and ultimately peaceful symbiosis. For who can deny that in the very region ravaged by conflict today, divergent cultural and religious currents coexisted harmoniously for centuries? Greece tried to do its best in the effort to gather influential cultural and religious leaders around the same table with the recent convening of a very successful international conference on religious and cultural pluralism and peaceful coexistence in the Middle East, which was also graced by the Reverend Dr. Olaf Fiske Tveit. Allow me to repeat the words of our Foreign Minister, Mr. Kodias, at the opening of the conference, saying that if we are proud today of the impact of the Greek culture and science on the West, this is due to its having been preserved and propagated by the Arabs and to the spread of culture associated with Islam. After pointing out that the Mediterranean has always been a region producing history, traditions, culture and science through an ongoing interaction among various religions, institutional system, interpersonal relations, the Greek foreign minister reminded that the Orthodox patriarchates of the East operate in regions where the majority of the population is Muslim. Allow me to conclude by applauding today's initiative by the World Council of Churches. I am certain this conference will allow for a fruitful exchange of views and will bring the added value of a soul-searching stimulus, thanks to the versatile background and expertise of the participant. A truly holistic approach towards the migration phenomenon must certainly include the religious community as an important stakeholder and advocate of humanitarian ideals. In this respect, churches have already provided important aid to refugees worldwide, and this conference is a proof of its determination to contribute even more in dealing with the refugee crisis by using their immense influence within the rank and file of their societies. Thank you very much.